The two topics are, the first one is losing with faith. How do you lose? How do you fail and maintain your faith? How do you overcome setbacks? And the next topic is, whose team are you on? Whose team are you on? If I hang out with ducks, what am I going to do? Quack, quack. If I hang out with single men that's chasing booties and I'm married, come on now, are we men? Whose team are you on? Come on, can we go there? Look at your neighbor. Neighbor, this is going to be raw. Right? Because everybody loves a winner. Okay, if you have your questions written down, bring them to me. Come on my right and just come and bring me the questions. Bring me the questions, please, so I'll have them ahead of time. And if you would like to give your question, ask your question verbally, that's okay as well. Just raise your hand. If you don't want to write it down, but you want it to be out in the open, just raise your hand and we will call on you. Okay, here's the first request. I would like for each panelist to introduce themselves. Introduce yourself, and I want you to share with the audience a failure. Share with the audience a failure and how you bounced back. Okay? Share with the audience a failure and how you bounced back. But start out by introducing yourself, share any of your accolades or however you want to do it. Okay, who would like to go first? All right, thank you. Thank you, Minister Howard. I appreciate you, man. I just asked him 10 minutes ago to do this, by the way.
Look like I've been volunteering all morning. Didn't even know it. Generally speaking, people don't associate failure with me because I've won so much. Yeah. You can Google that. But here's the thing. When I came out of graduate school, I was so anxious about what would become of me and what kind of career I would have. I applied for every job known to state government. And do you know that until this day right here, I have never applied for a job and got it. So every promotion, every advance, every opportunity I've had have not because I went in search of it, but because God sent it to me. I actually, after about 8 years into my career, stopped applying for jobs. Because what I began to learn is that if I would do what I had been given to do and stop worrying about the next possibility and the next ram up, but just do what I was given to do, the future would take care of itself. Come on, good word, good word. And so it came for me to a moment in 2011. I was down, and the doctors had told me that the only way I was going to go forward was to get a heart transplant. Now, I'm 65 years old and black in America. And I actually didn't believe that they were going to give a black man a heart who was 65 years old already. And I'm getting worse every day. But they said if I could pass these tests, I would be eligible. This ordeal started in June. It's now November 2nd, 2011. And the doctors came to me and said they had a heart for me.
Wow.
And I was going to get transplanted.
Wow. Wow.
And they began to prepare me for surgery to get a heart transplant on the second day of November. In the 45 minutes that they were preparing me for surgery, I crashed. And I could hear them saying, it's not happening. It's not going to happen. We are losing. Now, Pastor McJunkin, I'm wanting to say, I can hear you. You know what I'm saying? This is not encouraging. 4 days later, I began to be conscious, and my wife was so excited that I knew I'd gotten a heart transplant, but I didn't. The situation became so critical that they didn't transplant me. And I ultimately or wound up on an artificial heart because my heart wouldn't take me any further. The doctors became very alarmed about what my mental and emotional state would be because of the disappointment they thought. And they started talking to my wife about the kind of antidepressants they should put me on to keep my spirits up and to keep me from being so depressed. And she wisely said, well, you need to talk to him. And I said to them, once I understood what had happened, this will be all right. God has the heart for me. And this heart wasn't for me, so I won't be depressed. And I won't be in despair. I am disappointed, but not in despair. And they turned to my wife and said, is he serious? Wow. And she said, he's serious. And I wasn't depressed. So on November 13th, God delivered the heart that he had for me. All right. And so now I'm in my 8th year of living with Jonathan's heart beating in my chest. Glory to God. But you see, my whole life has been about first chasing after things that I thought were right for me, and God over and over saying no. Telling everybody I was interviewing with, tell him no. But then sending to me what he wanted me to have. So by 2011, I had figured out that God would send to me the rescue he wanted for me. So that's what I can tell you about failure and about the deliverance of a God who's in.
Now, tell them who you are, Minister Jamal.
I'm Jamal Scott. I'm kind of messed up a minute after that story. My failures began early in life. I have wanted to be a husband my entire life. Like, I looked at my parents, I admired what they had, I wanted it. To the point that I think I spoke my wife into my life when I was like 4 years old. I told my mom that I was going to marry somebody whose name started with a J, like mine. I'm Jamal. And she was going to wear glasses. That's all I knew. I had that revelation at 4, okay? So let's fast forward. So I had dated some women, thought that they might be the one, but every time I would go and ask God, is this the right person? He would say no. So when he said no, I would let them move on off into their life so they can be with the person that God had for them, and hopefully I find the person that God had for me. So I thought when I got saved, this was going to be a quick process. So I got saved, 94. So I was like, okay, I'm going to my little church services, looking around. Oh, she looked nice. Check this one out over here. okay? And none of those panned out. So we go from 1994 to 2001. So I had basically, going into 2001, I had, I won't say I had given up, but I was like, I wasn't going on no more blind dates. I wasn't getting ready to, you know, like, it just wasn't working. So I had made up my mind that I was through looking, and Lord, if you want me to have a wife, you're gonna send me a wife. That was December 31st, 2000. On January 16th of 2001, I was a teacher. We had a snow day. So on this snow day, I get up, I go, you know, kind of looking around, get on my computer. As soon as I log onto the computer, this was back in the days of AOL instant messaging. I get an instant message from this woman in Kenya saying that she was showing her mom how to chat and how to do this and that. So I was like, okay, I ain't doing nothing, it's a snow day, let's talk. So we started talking. So that eventually ended up with me proposing to this woman in Kenya that I'm talking to every day. We're trying to set up a way to meet each other, so we decide that we going to meet in London, okay? We're gonna meet in London. So the September 11th attack happened like right here in this time span. So a plane ticket that would have been $700, $800 went down to like $300, $400. I was like, oh, I can make this happen now. Okay. I'm a little new teacher. So we met in London on November the 21st of 2001 for the first time. And it was honestly like I had known this woman who grew up in Kenya my whole life. And like, that is not a joke. It was like, it just clicked, everything. Like, I'm cracking a joke, you know, hoping she'll laugh at it, and she laughing about it before I get it out of my mouth, right? Same with her. So it just worked. But we had challenges because not everybody was excited about this relationship as we were, which brought a bunch of pressure into our relationship. We were supposed to get married on June 19, 2004. We had applied for the visas. People have bought bridesmaids dresses. We got tuxedos. We rented a venue, and she did not get approved for the visa. So that hurt. And but we were still gonna do it. So we get to August, end of July, we had our family reunion. So I go to Detroit for the family reunion, and I'm sitting in the hotel with my family, and I get a phone call from the fiance, and she says, I don't think I want to be married anymore. And I'm sitting in the room like clowning with my family, and I go from clowning with my family to now I'm gonna have to ask y'all to leave the room while I get myself together. And then you gotta go talk to your whole family on one side, who is all amped about Jamal marrying the girl from Africa. And y'all still get married? You know, of course, I ain't really had that conversation at that point in time. Everything's still on, you know, we'll let y'all know when it's gonna happen. So that was a painful little process, you know, and she was genuinely the first person that I knew God said, this is your wife. It was people I wanted to be my wife. And he said no, but this was the first time I got a very clear, this is your wife. So when that didn't work, I got shook. Like, I'm like, do I even know God? Who am I praying to? Like, everything that I thought I knew about God became questionable at that moment. So I kept going on, you know, you try to date a person here, there, you know, but I got real short with them. If it wasn't right, I ain't playing with you. Okay, nice dinner, have a good life. And, you know, this went on for about 3-4 years, and I realized that I had a lot of unforgiveness in my life. So as 2007 was ending, I'm like, Lord, I don't want to take any of this with me into 2008. And now there were like 3 people that I realized that I had not forgiven, and she was one of them. So I sent messages to everybody saying, look, I want you to know I forgive you. Whether you ask me to forgive you or not, I don't want nothing in return. I just want you to know that I'm not going to harbor this in my heart any longer. 3 people. So when I sent this message, the ex-fiance just like, oh, she just started trying to hook it back up again. I'm just like, brakes, okay? And she was saying how she knew I was the one. I'm just like, you know, in my mind, I'm saying, but you left me though. But you left me, but I'm the one. So I gave her a hard time, I must admit. For her to stick around even talking to me for the next several months, that took her. Either she knew what God had said to her, or she was crazy, because I was tripping. And around that time, we were at church, and the pastor's wife spoke, and she's just talking about the blessings of obedience. So, you know, as she was saying this, I had a godson who was like headed to prison, like just knew it if he didn't get it together real quick, and God was like, go get him. I'm like, Lord, I'm single, I'm trying to find a wife, and you want me to go get this bad child and bring him into my house, you know, but I knew definitively that it was God talking, so I went and I got him, and he stayed with me for a semester, went to school here, and at the end of that semester, you know, it kind of hit the fan, and I was like, okay, that's it. And I had peace that I had done what God told me to do. So literally the day that I sent him home, I get an email, or 2 days later, I get an email from the ex-fiance saying, I want nothing from you. I just want you to know that I loved you then, I love you now, and I always love you. And you know, like she had been saying this stuff before, and it was just like, whatever. But when I read that message that day, my heart broke, because I knew it took a lot for her to say that to me, because I knew how I was treating her, okay, and talking to her. So I was talking to one of my friends about it, and she said, if you feeling something, something still there. I was like, girl, it ain't nothing here. And she was like, well, you better check yourself. So I went to praying, as I normally do. And I was just like, I don't even really know how to feel. I haven't spoken to her in 4 years. I don't really know what's going on. Ironically, I literally gave everything away that she had ever given me, ever. I think I might have kept like a couple statues, like a little carvings or something. But that was it. Like anything she had ever given me, I gave away. But I kept the visa letter because she was actually approved a month after we broke up. Wow. I kept the letter. So we talked on the phone. School got out, graduation happened, and we talked on the phone. The first time that we talked again was June 19th, 2008, 4 years from the day we were supposed to get married. And it didn't click for me until the conversation ended. And she said, do you know what today is? I was like, nope. She says June 19th. And when she said that, like, it all clicked. But in that conversation, you know, I was just like kind of no nonsense. I was just like, okay, glad you're doing fine. What would be different if we got back together? And she said, I'll leave everything, everybody I know, for the chance for us to be back together. That was different. I was like, okay, I might be able to entertain this possibility. So I said, so when you come to visit, she said, I got to leave. She said, let me just go to work tomorrow and figure out when I can leave. So she started trying to get here. And these people kept saying to her when she would call the embassy that if you go, it'll be in your best interest if it was for a wedding. Wow. I'm just like, good crap. Wow. You know, like you go from nothing to You got to decide you're going to marry this person sight unseen after all that time. So that was a hard place to be. And, you know, I went and talked to every pastor I had ever had in my life. Current pastor, my daddy, former pastor, like, look, I need to get on your calendar this week. And I went and talked to all of them. And my previous pastor in St. Louis, his name was Ronald Bobo. And he said, well, I don't see a problem. He said, but if you're going to bring her back into your life, you have to have forgiven her. Because if you haven't forgiven her, this is not going to work. So, you know, he took me through the Lord's Prayer, and we, you know, looked at, you know, how we supposed to forgive. And I was like, okay. I was like, my mom used to always say to me, we put God in a box. And God can only function inside that box because that's as big as our faith. He's like, so we can't put God in a box. So I would always say I'm not putting God in a box. But I was like, when this happened, I'm just like, good Lord. So long story short, we talked to these people at the embassy, and they said, you need to be getting married. And we started planning the wedding. And she came to the United States. She got here on September the 29th of 2008. And we got married on November the 22nd of 2008. And on November the 22nd of this past year, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary. So, you know, I was telling Ladarius over here that every failure that has occurred in my life has occurred because I was trying to do things in my own strength or in my own wisdom or my own ability. Every failure that has occurred in my life has occurred there. And even in this 10-year marriage to the woman that I love more than anything on the planet, my failures in my marriage have been because I'm relying on what I think I know, the books that I read, or, you know, well, these people told me, you know, Brother Warren over here told me that this is how they made it, so that's what I'm going to do in my marriage. No, you got to talk to God for yourself, for your marriage, to the spouse that you have today. And then you got to do that again tomorrow. And that was a long, hard-learned lesson for me. But I think I got it. I think I got it. So 10 years in, I'm happy to say that I'm feeling less than I was previously.
Somebody give God a hand clap of worship. Powerful, powerful, powerful. I am honored that we have one of our community leaders here with us today, and Frank McNeil. I twisted his arm, and I threatened him and laid hands on him and put a gallon of oil on him. But he made it out. I'm humbled. I thank God for this man of God. Frank, you go ahead and go next.
Thank you, Pastor Mays. And let's see, how do I start this story? Howard is not from Springfield. I think, Jamar, you're from Springfield. You from Arkansas? God. Okay. Nobody's from Springfield up here. Anyway, coming from North Carolina in 1974, how many of you were, I don't know what you may have been doing, but I had just finished law school, came here, and, you know, I was, how should I say, I was angry. When you're angry, you don't make good decisions.
Come on, teach.
So what, I had to take the bar exam. And the day I was supposed to go to Chicago, you know, the bar exam is a 2-day exam. My wife was pregnant, and I'm getting ready to get up to go to Chicago. She miscarries. So I canceled, I had to cancel now. So next year, get prepared and everything, go to Chicago, come back, 2-day exam, you have to take time off of work and everything. About 3 months later, you get your letter, you fail. So my position was, I got to work. In the meantime, I've got a child now. And in the meantime, do I take off from work? Now I got a family to support. Do I take off from work and do all the study? And, I don't have anybody, to take care of my family. My wife is home. And so I got to make a decision. What do? Do I continue to pursue my dream? Or do I take care of my family? So, having that to look at, I made a decision. How do I become someone? How do I make a difference without being barrister, lawyer, attorney? And so I looked at what I had to do, and I come from a, excuse me, you guys, please.
Take your time, take your time.
Old school. Goodness. My dad was strictly old school. These are your kids. You got to take care of them.
Yes, yes.
I don't care what your aspirations are. This is for you. This is on you. You got to do this. So I had to make a decision what I was going to do. And as a result, I said, well, I probably just go ahead and get involved in politics. And as a result of that, I was saying, how do I enter this political system? I had not been very active politically prior to coming here. You just got out of school, so you're worried about graduating and making grades and all of those things, so you're not really concerned about the political life. So, 1981, county board, there was a county board member named George Mims who was a Democrat and voted with the Republicans for control. And this was the last time the Democrats in Sangamon County had an opportunity to take control of the county board. Was in 1981. And George Mims voted with the Republicans to give control to the Republicans. And I said, this is where I start. This guy was a 2-time incumbent. And I said, I'm going to run against him. I know nothing. I'm barely here, 5 years now. So I don't know a whole lot of people politically because I had not even gotten engaged that much here in Springfield. There was a lady over on 12th Street, and some of you may remember. I don't think anybody here, preacher might remember. Miss Hattie T. Cobb. She was a precinct committeeman, and I went by and somebody told me, go by and see Miss Hattie. I went by and sat down and talked to her, and she was a staunch Democrat. I mean, you don't find them like that anymore. And so she said, I'll help you. And I said, okay. And at the time, my brother Ernest had just come to town. And so I said, well, and we had lived together for a while, and we had just gotten different apartments because I had gotten married and he had just gotten into an engagement, so he was living So I said, well, you're going to have to help me do this because, you know, I don't have anybody else. As a result, Miss Hattie and I worked, and we worked, and we worked, and we worked. And this is where I found out who you could trust, who you couldn't trust, and I was successful. First time out, first time running for a public office, I won. And now I'm on the county board, and I'm trying to figure out. Next thing comes along is after about 3 or 4 years on the county board, I'm looking at the city of Springfield, and as you know the story. So we got together, and Rudy and Bill and I, Rudy Davenport, Bill Washington, and talked to Judge Craven, who is now deceased. And having the background in law, I said, you know, there's this thing called the Voting Rights Act, and I think we can change Springfield if we file a voting rights suit. And we could ask to change the form of government because wasn't any representation of African Americans on Springfield City Council. And I said, I think we can do this. Not understanding the kind of, I mean, having the background, but still not understanding the critical nature of how much money plays a role in a lawsuit. And the city of Springfield, unfortunately, tried to make us, they tried to spend us out. That make you spend all your money to the point where you can't compete anymore. And that was the way they thought they was going to defeat us. As a result, April 1985, we filed the suit. 2 years, January of '87, when Judge Baker made the decision, we won. Then, in the midst of that, we had to fight again because the city of Springfield didn't give up easy. We had what we call a transitional form of government. A transitional form of government meant that they got one more shot at being commissioners, and the aldermen were in place. But during all of this time, the one thing that was consistent is my wife, my brother, and the brothers of Kappa Alpha Psi. That's who I had. That was it. Of course, all of my family's down in North Carolina, so the only people that was there, my frat brothers and my real brother.
Everybody. 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 Look at your brother. I am my brother's keeper.
Our brother's keeper.
Tell that other brother, I am my brother's keeper. Tell somebody else, I am my brother's keeper. Tell that brother, I need you and you need me. Come on, tell somebody, I need you and you need me. We in this together. Y'all see, I done made myself at home. I'm moving past the furniture and stuff. Come on up here, Minister Wayne. Come on up here. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I am my brother's keeper. Okay, Pastor Moody. Share with the audience who you are about yourself, and you go next.
Good morning. My name is Jason Moody. I am the proud pastor of the Grace United Methodist Church, located on East Capitol, right down the street here. I am proud and privileged to be here, and a lot of times people look at pastors, ministers, community leaders, and they think that person has the perfect life. Everything is wonderful. They got a direct connect with God. They can reach the Lord whenever they want Him, and they lead a charmed life. Well, not necessarily. In the year 2008, I decided that I was going to go back to seminary. I started my theological education in 2005 at Emory University in Atlanta. And I was in school, and it was my first semester, and I went to, I was in the mall, and they were doing health screening checks. And the lady, she checked, she did a quick blood glucose test, and she said, you know, your cholesterol levels seem a little high. You might need to get that checked. I said, okay, well, I feel fine. So I kept right on going. I felt fine, no problems. And, but I didn't like my glasses at the time. I said, I'm gonna go get some new glasses. So I went to the lens crafters, and they did the eye testing, and okay, well, yeah, you need glasses. So we're gonna give you your prescription, but we need to do some more testing. It looks like your pressure in your eyes is a little more than what we like to see it. We want to check your pressures again, so we're going to do some ophthalmic testing. So when you get your vision checked, you're seeing an optometrist, but when you're getting the structure of your eyes checked, you're seeing an ophthalmologist. So they put me in with the ophthalmologist, and they said, okay, your pressure is high. We believe you have glaucoma. And they checked a little further, and they said, okay, we're going to send you to a specialist that's an ophthalmologist. So I went, and I'm like, wow, this is getting serious. I just wanted some glasses. This is not what I was looking for. So went in, and the ophthalmologist, she said, Mr. Moody, your vision is fine, but your optic nerve is very bad. I said, well, how bad is it? She said, well, it's so bad, like the old joke, it's bad enough to where you only have 5% of your optic nerve left around your eyes. I said, whoa. And the preacher, the pastor, was about to, she could see it, she saw it coming, the waterworks were about to come out. She said, wait a minute, Pastor, wait a minute. She said, you have 5% left. God has made us in such a way that all you need is 1% to be able to see. So you have 5 times more than what you need to be able to see. I said, glory! Hallelujah. But even though I rejoiced that I would have some vision, I was just starting out in seminary, and I said, well, this is a little much for me right now. So I dropped out of school and pastored full time and went back to school in 2008. And so as I was in school in 2008, I was going through some stuff. Bad marriage, didn't really have any money for school, and I was at a school I didn't really want to be going to. I was at the ITC in Atlanta, and I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be at Emory or Duke, one of those, and I was at ITC because I didn't have Emory or Duke money. And so sometimes when you're at a place, I want to quote Kushner, because Kushner, this was a book that I was assigned to read at one point. And Kushner says when he thought, he's referring to Moses. And Kushner, Harold Kushner is he's a rabbi, and he wrote a book entitled Overcoming Life's Disappointments. And he was speaking about Moses, and he said, when he thought he was doing something that made a difference to people, he could bear any burden. But when he lost that sense of achievement, he became too discouraged to keep on doing the hard things. And if you think about that just for a moment, when you think you're making a difference, oh, it's easy. You can run hard when you feel like it's appreciated. But the moment when you feel like things are not making a difference and when you become too discouraged, it's hard to do the hard things. And so in 2008, when I was there, seminary, and, just doing my seminary thing, reading, doing a lot of writing, the first semester went by, and it was all good. And then the second semester came along, and in that first semester, I'd gotten a lot of attention from my fellow academicians. We were supposed to be there getting our lesson. But sometimes when you're in that situation, in the place that I was distracted by the social life. And so at that time, I shared with you all that I was in the thralls of a bad marriage. And all these female seminarians hoping to be preachers' wives, or most of them were hoping to be preachers' wives. A lot of them didn't want to pastor themselves. But where else to find a pastor that you want to be married to than in the seminary? So that's where they were. And there was a lot of attention. Oh, you look nice. You smell nice. Oh, you're so brilliant. Oh, how did you, you preach so well over there. And these things, they puff you up. They make, all right, yeah. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. And after a while, by and by, there was one particular young lady that she wasn't even, let me just say this. I want to piggyback on something Jamar said earlier. Some of my biggest disappointments were from things that I did to myself. This young lady had made up in her mind that she was going to conquer this preacher. And I didn't offer much resistance. So when this young lady approached me, she approached me with an object as simple as a Rubik's Cube. Were you ever able to solve one of these things? I take it apart and put it back together. That's how I solved it. So, so here we are. We're going to figure out how to solve the Rubik's Cube. Now, this time you had YouTube, so the algorithms were printed on there, so you could go online and look, and I figured it out. I was kind of proud of that. I never did that as a kid. So I'm showing how to solve the Rubik's Cube, and we're in her dorm room. And I've solved the cube, put it on the table. And one thing leads to another, and there we are in the thralls of the bedroom. I get up because I'm the kind of guy at that time that was all that meant was that. That moment ended at the end. And so I got up, redressed myself, and was ready to go because there was nothing else to do there. The Rubik's Cube was solved. So I got up, she walked me down the stairs, and the girls in the hallway were kind of, wow, you go, girl. You know, they patting on the back. When we get down to the bottom of the stairs on a snow day, Lord have mercy. We get to the bottom of the stairs, and she looks at me and she says, so what are we now? I said, well, we're working on being friends. That's it. I got in my car, zipped off in the snow on my way home. Little did I know what was happening in that young lady's mind at that moment. A few days went by. I said, well, I hadn't called. I could at least send a text. So I sent a text. Hope everything's all right. That's it. Wait, I was done. Because I didn't want to start any kind of conversation up. But I didn't get a response. I said, wow, that was kind of strange. And so Hurricane Katrina had came through a few years earlier, and I was preparing for a mission trip to go to New Orleans and to work on painting and restoring a church that was there that had been damaged by the floods from Katrina. I got a phone call from school, and on the other end was the director of student services or something like that, and she said, I need to see you in my office. I said, see you in my, okay, when? She said, as soon as possible, I need to see you. I said, okay, well, okay. I had no idea why she would want to see me. So I went, and I'm sitting there. A campus security officer comes in. I'm like, okay, what's going on? And so this young lady, she's the Rubik's Cube young lady, is walking into the building, and I'm seeing the people telling her to stay out there. And I'm seeing two professors coming they're walking with her, one holding Kleenex and the other one holding a hand. And I'm like, what is going on? And so the lady asked me, the school representative asked me, she said, the vice president, the provost, is getting ready to come in, and we want to talk to you about something. My heart at this moment is racing. I'm like, what is going on? And so the provost comes in, and he's sitting there. And the only time I had any conversation with him was, you know, nice chapel service, you know, nothing serious. So he sits down, and we're all in the room, and she says, you want to tell me what happened on Sunday night, on Monday night, there at the Turner Theological Center dormitory? And so I'm looking now like, why would I want to tell you what happened in a dorm room? And then she says, well, because, you know, she could see it on my face, and she goes on and says, because this young lady is saying that you raped her. I was just like, this is not even for real. This is my whole life flashed before my eyes. I said, this can't be for real. This is crazy. So now they said, this is what we want you to do. We need you to write out an entire statement telling what happened. But we want you to tell us now what happened as campus security. I understood why the campus security guy was there then. And he said, they're listening. And I'm having to give the play-by-play of everything that happened in this event, in this dorm room. Talking about, I was so embarrassed. Oh, utterly embarrassed. Because like I already said before, this isn't even a person that I would have even normally been in a situation with. but it got late. And I was there too long. And so I'm going down through it. And they said, okay, well, we're going to be in contact with you. I said, do I need an attorney? Oh, no, it's not that far yet. It's not that far yet. You won't need an attorney. This is what this lady is telling me. And I said, okay. So keep in mind, I told you we were preparing to go on a trip to New Orleans to do mission work. So the whole time I'm in New Orleans, supposed to be doing mission work, my mind is on what's going on in Atlanta right now. What is happening with, am I going to get a phone call? Am I going to get off the bus when we get back and get arrested? So I'm sitting there nervous, can't really focus, but I went back. And when I got off the bus, I was awake the whole trip I got back, and I'm looking at the parking lot to see who's in the parking lot, to see if the Atlanta Police Department is in the parking lot. So they weren't there. And from that day forward, well, from that day, about a year, I never heard anything. But I was so embarrassed about what had happened, I left school. I said, I'm never going back there. That's just embarrassing. But during my hiatus, I picked up my Overcoming Life's Disappointment book, and I read this line. Kushner said, when Moses says, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? God answers not by telling Moses who he is, but by telling him who God is, saying, I will be with you. I got my stuff together. I packed my bags. I said, I'm going back to school. And when I went back, the same lady that told me I didn't need a lawyer, they saw me around campus and they were like, well, what's going on with it? Why is he here? We thought we got rid of him, is basically what she was thinking. And she called me into her office and she said, well, we thought we told you not to. I said, oh no. I said, I left because I was embarrassed. She said, well, you might run into this young lady on campus and we don't want to. I said, no, bring her in. I said, I don't care. Because at this point I knew, I knew I hadn't done anything. And I knew that obviously this young lady wasn't pressing anything. I was trying to figure out who was pressing it. So we came in and we're sitting around the table having a conference. And I found out these two, we got into an argument. The young lady and the school administrator got into an argument. And the young lady said, I didn't tell you he had even done that. You told me to say he did that. Wow. I'm flabbergasted. I'm looking like, what could be your motive to take a student through such an ordeal? And I came to find out some months later, I wasn't the first one. I wasn't the only one. This administrator had taken several students through the years through the same ordeal. Because when she was in seminary there, an incident happened with her that she did not report. So when any young lady came to her and felt like she had been slighted, her story to them is, you've been raped. So for me to get all this information, this lady didn't know what she had done to me over the past year. So I continued to matriculate there at the ITC, and this administrator in my final semester of school, and I had 3 years worth of work to do. And I finished, because when I went back, I was focused. And I finished 3 years worth of schoolwork in 2 years. And I went to school every semester taking overloads. I didn't care. But in that last semester, this administrator was terminated because of what she had done to several male students. And I never went in and said anything. I was just getting my work. But there were other male students that went to the president and others and said, this has got to stop. Right? Because, you know, at the end of the day, they had the police department coming in. They did a rape kit. They did all this stuff. And they said nothing. We don't see any evidence of anything happening. And for me, I had to go with that stigma. Because even though people knew I didn't do it, they knew I had been accused. So I had to sit there with that hovering over me. And no matter where I go, no matter what class I was in, people would say, yeah, that's the one that went through. He's the one. But at the end of the day, I said, I don't care what anybody thinks, because God knows. But the lesson that I got from that was this. You got to focus your attention like a laser beam on your task that is at hand. Because if you're not focused, stuff happens. And I can look back at myself and say, I wasn't focused. I wasn't focused. Had I been focused on, like my grandma would say, get my lesson, I would have been all right. I would have never been in this situation. But because of what I went through, it caused my prayer life to become stronger and deeper. It caused me to be able to be in that situation and not take for granted that I was there. Because remember, I shared with you, I didn't even want to be at that school. And in the end, I wanted to finish. I wanted to graduate. I was proud when I walked across that stage, because I wasn't supposed to make it. I was victimized by an administrator of the school. But in spite of that, God brought me through.
Amen. Everybody loves a winner. Amen. Well, we're going to prepare for lunch, but we have one last question, and we're going to make it very brief with the responses so we can go and have lunch and come back for our next session. Here's the question. Whose team are you on? Whose team are you on? And what that means is, who was the man that had the greatest influence in your life? And how? Who was the man? See, that question tells me that I need to make sure I'm on the right team. Is he adding value to my life? Or is he a leech just pulling out of my life? Is he a bad influence? I want you to share with the audience, who was the man and how that had the greatest influence in your life? Who would like to go first?
I was actually thinking about this morning. And what I was thinking about this morning was the fact that I haven't done for someone what Samuel Sublett Jr. did for me. Early on in my career, when I was aggressive and misguided and arrogant, and by the way, there was no term called mentoring in those days. It was probably in the Webster's dictionary, but it wasn't in vogue. A man named Samuel Sublett Jr. reached out to me and started, me and two other fellas, and started doing what you would call mentoring and coaching. I never said I needed a mentor or a coach. He just decided I needed one. And this brother was in charge of juvenile corrections. And he was the kind of person who everybody respected. In fact, one of the things that allowed him to be my mentor, in other words, that allowed me to submit, was that he had something I wanted. And that is that when he walked in the room, whatever room he walked in, people assumed that they needed to hear what this brother had to say. He was just an expert in his area. He was well respected, and I wanted that. So when he started paying attention to me, and this brother would send for me and tell me about the things he heard I was doing that had to stop. Now, it wasn't his business to be in my business, but he was all in the business. This brother would tell me what I needed to read and would give me stuff, make copies of stuff. Read this, and next week we'll talk about it. This man taught me what leadership was about and what professionalism was about. And oddly enough, eventually when I became director of corrections, he worked for me. And I was like, and I just called him in and I said, whatever you want to do, you do that. But I didn't know how to supervise him because I had learned everything I knew from him. So Samuel Sublette Jr. was a brother who reached out to me when I needed guidance, I needed direction, and didn't know I needed it, and just began to feed me and nurture me. And my career in corrections is owed to a large extent to this man, who, by the way, never asked me for anything. And I'll say one other thing. We were young, my wife and I, and he and his wife had a 25th year anniversary and bothered to invite us. And so there we were with all of the who's who in corrections at this 25th year anniversary where they were getting silver and stuff. And we were impressed, right? It was like, we gonna do this. You know, we've been married like 2 or 3 years at the time. We gonna do this. We gonna have us a 25-year anniversary. And so it actually helped our marriage. And so this year we've been married 52 years.
The biggest influence in my life was my father. He showed me what it was to be a single parent and a man. My mother passed away when I was 12 years old. My father had made a promise to her that he would never let his children be separated. He had 4 boys and 1 girl. He raised all 5 of us by himself. The state tried to divide us. He went to court to fight for us, and he won. He told them, they're mine. I'll raise them. I'll provide for them. I'll take care of them. He did all of that. In spite of what I was, he did all of that. I had relatives that didn't allow their kids to play with me. See, he's a bad kid. Don't hang around with him, you're going to get in trouble. I didn't care, and my father didn't care what they said about his son. He still raised me with the proper tools, the know-how to survive. He instilled in me a Bible foundation. He had his 5 kids in the church, right down the street here, St. John's AME Church. I grew up in that church. When I got old enough, I left the church. I left home, thought I was grown. So this is my life now. I'll take care of it. I had an uncle, my mother's brother, tell me, you'll never amount to anything. You will always be a street person. So you can call it what you want. I had that mentality because they labeled me as that. So the streets was my friend. I ran the streets. Yes, I did everything wrong, but I knew right from wrong because it was in me. Those same people that labeled me, talked about me, I had the chance to tell them, how you like me now?
Mr. Hamilton almost gave my speech here. As I said, my father was old school. And when he said, I don't want to see you with that guy because he's a bad kid, don't get caught with that guy because it wasn't going to be nice. And he didn't have a formal education. He just grew up understanding right from wrong. And man, this is one of the things that if so many kids could just have somebody in their life that said, no, you're not going to do that, who said, you are not going to get involved with these guys over here, or that I said, be home at this time, and you got to be home at this time. Nothing elaborate, just right from wrong and rules. And I see so many kids now who have no clue that there are limits that you need to set for yourself. But because I had someone in my life that set limits for me, that set rules for me, I hung out. Yes, I did. I did everything everybody else did, but at a point, you drew the line and said, now Papa ain't gonna like this, so I'm gonna stop right here. And that was how I was able to make it through. How many of my buddies ended up in jail, ended up dead, and ended up in a lifetime of just distraught and humiliation because they had no limits that they could say, I'm gonna stop there. And as a result of having those limits, having that instilled in me at an early age, I'm the youngest in my family, by the way. I'm the youngest of 5 older brothers. And when you see them taking that punishment for what they did wrong, it don't take you long to figure out, I'm not doing that. I mean, you know, vicarious learning, as they call it, you learn through looking at other people. I picked that up real quick. So by the time, and then it was times when somebody did something, we had the rule of silence. Nobody's gonna tell, okay, line up. Here it comes. I mean, but that's how we grew up. And man, I'm telling you, how many kids would be in a better place had they have someone to do that for?
Well, I echo my 2 brothers on the right. I think the biggest male influence in my life, past or present, is my father, for both good and not so good reasons. And what I take away from that is he used to always say, you have to be better than me. So his dad told him that you have to be better than me, and he instilled that in us. So because he has been, open and raw and transparent, and this is where I messed up, and this is where I don't want you to mess up. And then there have been times that he's messed up with me. He said things that kind of scarred me at points in my life. And I didn't even realize how deep it was until I was sitting in church one day, and my pastor was like, we sitting on the altar, went up for prayer, and he said, so, I don't know where he came. He was like, how's your time with God? You reading the Bible? Yes, I'm reading the Bible. How's your prayer time? That's good. How's your marriage? Then he asked me, so, why do you dress the way you do? Because I will always be suited and booted, as they would say, like all the time. Like, it was extremely important to me that I was always like tie perfect, everything matched, got the shoes, everything. And when he asked me that question, I didn't really have an answer for him, and I started like digging, like, why is this so important to me? Because it was kind of ridiculous. Like when I got married, my wife was like, you take up more of the closet than me. Okay? So I'm like, what is that about? Well, we were poor. We were poor when I grew up. So, I had kids became popular in like the 90s, and people wearing them, and they were a thing. So I had the no-name, beat-up holy version of a kid in the early 80s. And they were not popular, and they did not give me that good reputation. So I kind of made up my mind that, I'm going to use my brain, because God had given me a good one of those, so that my children would never have to experience that. So that's what I have done. I have been able to take my kids, to multiple countries. Part of that is because their mom is from Kenya. The rest of it is we just have chosen to let them see the world. Because some things we can tell you, but the rest of it you need to see. Because we can say that there are children somewhere else in the world who don't have what you have, and you need to appreciate it. But then I can take you to somebody's house that's made out of mud, and them having like a couple pair of like outfits to wear, like 2-3 outfits to wear, period, and you trying to decide what you're wearing today. So we keep it going. And my mantra to my children is going to be, you're going to have to be better than me. And that's not just financial and material things. I want them to be more connected to God. Like, I want them to be able to pray when they get sick right now and get healed. Not waiting for daddy, or I got to tell mama because I got this pain. I want them to feel that connection with God because he's the same God. So as much of that as I can give to them right now, that's what I'm going to do. Because at the end of the day, careers, all that means nothing. Like I was telling people, I tell people on my job all the time that if you die today, we're going to be interviewing for your position in 10 days. Period. So we're not going to get involved with, like you got to be at work at the cost of something that's going on with your family. You go take care of your family. Yeah. So I feel like, my parents, dad.
So really quickly, for me, one of the most influential male figures in my life was introduced to me. It's always about a girl. So in 10th grade, I was a runner. I was a runner through high school and college. And so this young lady that I met, she was my little 10th grade girlfriend, and she said, my uncle runs, and I want you to meet my uncle. He runs long distance like you. I said, okay, well, I'll meet him. So she introduced me. It was a road race, and she said, my uncle's running club is sponsoring a road race. So I registered, I ran the race, and I met him, and his words, I'm very impressed with you, young man. And I said, what? I'm just, like Jamar said, I'm just a poor kid from College Park. I mean, there's nothing impressive about me. I mean, these Nikes, I've had these Nikes for 3 years. I mean, these are the same shoes that I've been wearing for years. These clothes are just tattered running clothes that I got from Salvation Army. And, but he was impressed with me. And for him to say that it meant the world to me. He said, I want to work with you. He said, this summer, you know, when school gets out, I want you to start running with me and the guys, we all run together. So I said, okay, I like to run, so I'm definitely doing that. So I started running with these guys. And so I could run circles around all of them. I mean, they were just, to me, they were old guys. So I'm running circles around these guys. But for them, it wasn't about that. For them, they were just going to be a team to mentor me. And I didn't realize it. And so Mr. Smith called me over to his house. His name is Gerald Smith. He called me over to his house. I just got in my car. I worked and saved and saved and saved, and I bought it. He said, I want to see it. I want to see your car. So I said, okay. So I drove it over to his house. He was like, man, this is a nice car. This is beautiful. I had a 77 Monte Carlo, Chevrolet Monte Carlo, Lando with the electric seats and sunroof and all that kind of stuff. To me, it was all right. But for my friends, that was like a boat. They was like, how are you driving that car? Because that was back before the big cars was in style with young people. So he said, man, this is a beautiful car. I said, well, I want to tint the windows. He said, no, don't tint your windows. He said, let it be known that this is Jason Moody's car. Let people see you driving your car. Don't be ashamed. And I said, oh, okay, well. And he was like, young brother, he said, what about your spirituality? So he was a Muslim brother. He started talking about spirituality. He never tried to convert me to Islam, but he just wanted me to know there is a God. And he made me think about those kind of things. Life is not just about running. It's not just about this or that, but there are more things to it. He said, I want you to go to school. I want you to get your education. And so these were things that he was instilling in me that my parents, you know, God bless them, but they weren't putting that in me, that you can do this or that you can do that or that you can make it. And they weren't at every track meet. They weren't at those events that I needed them to be at. But Brother Smith was one of those people that could be there. I found out that he wasn't just that way with me. He was that way with all the kids in his neighborhood. I was out somewhere years ago with my ex-wife, and we were talking with this guy, a relative of hers, and this guy that she was with. And we started talking about where we were from and who we knew. And both of us realized that Mr. Gerald was a big influence in our lives. He was like, man, we need to, he said, it's a lot of people Mr. Gerald helped. We need to really do something for him. And he had told me, he said, Mr. Gerald kind of got into drugs and stuff like that, and he just kind of went down, and we just all need to kind of go and support him now. Well, when I was in seminary getting ready to graduate, I was at the state capitol protesting against the death penalty in the state of Georgia. And I heard a voice behind me, and he was yelling out. And I turned around and said, that voice sounds familiar, but who is that? And I turned around, and it was Mr. Gerald. Oh, I grabbed him, I hugged him, I said, man, oh my God, you know how much of an impact you've had in my life? And I just started, he just began to weep. He was just crying profusely. He was like, I had no idea. I was just trying to be a good neighbor. And I said, wow, that's all right, to be a good neighbor. And he was not only a good neighbor, but he was a major influence in my life.
Amen. Amen. Let's thank God for our panelists. Somebody say, I am my brother's keeper.
My brother's keeper.
Everybody loves a winner.
Loves a winner.
Let us pray. We're going to ask the Lord to bless our food and bless our fellowship and our networking together. Lord, we thank you. Rich, rich testimonials all the way from last night to this afternoon. Thank you, Lord, for bringing us together to make a difference in each other's lives, to make a deposit in each other's lives, to be a blessing.